or dropped off somewhere, it is us in the community policing environment who has to do that, which means it's all of you, and it's all of you who pay for that. So this is always going to be somewhat of an emotional topic for some. It is a financial topic for many, but the bottom line is when you look at this topic like we should many things in the state of Michigan now, we should look at concurrency of policy. How do all the parts fit together? Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing it in the right way? And I believe the bottom line is possible to use that be part of the analysis, the bottom line, and make that compatible with all the other aspects to it. And that's why we brought the ordinance forward. We certainly didn't do this for purely economic reasons or to affect the economy of a business, but indeed we feel that the bottom line has to be measured in cost, taxpayers' expenditure, the impact, and I've seen the emotional impact of having animals that are frankly defective, that have been brought into the world improperly, and they are cast out somewhere, and my people end up, your taxpayer paid people end up oftentimes being the last solution for those animals, which is unfortunate. So either you go back and you stop the problem and help stop the problem, or you just simply continue to just receive it, process it. And one last thought, animals to me are not a product. They are a creature. They are something that's alive. We can't treat them as products with a certain size, shape, value, and just process them that way. My family doesn't. All the people I know don't, and the people around this table don't. So I don't see possibly how we can judge this as a product and totally immerse ourselves in just a business analysis in this. Thank you.
So I would like to go to Mr. Albright for 1 second, if you wouldn't mind. A lot of letters and so forth have gone to you today. Did you want to make any verbal changes in any particular, and I know Mr. Kleinfeld has some suggestions also, but there were some things that were just like 1 or 2 word changes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. In section 8-50, J, as the ordinance is offered, the council sees it says off-site retail store. That should actually read off-site retail sale. And then moving down to subsection N of 8-50, it currently reads retail store. That should read retail sale.
Madam Mayor, I had
Yes,
one
please.
small item just like that. Should we just motion right now and we can just make these tiny changes and motion on the table then? Should we just do it that way?
That would be fine.
A motion to give second reading to and adopt ordinance number 1126, which amends chapter 8 animals by creating a new article 4 humane pet acquisition. Support.
Please support.
And then the minor amendments would be the 2 that, so I motion to amend, as Mr. Albright said, in 8-50, letter J and N. Letter J would be off-site retail sale instead of off-site retail store. N would be retail sale instead of retail store. And then just the simple other change was under prohibitions, so the next section, 8-51, where A and B list the specific animals, C and D do not. So I would just want to replace animal or animals with that list there. Dogs, cats, ferrets, rabbits, long-lived birds, or large reptiles, just so that it is consistent, and that's really all, I guess.
And then Mr. Kleinfeld, I understand that you have some changes that you want to put forward.
Well, I don't have any, I guess, specific changes at this point. Over the last 2 weeks, I've learned a little bit on reading on this, and I do agree with this ordinance being needed for at least dogs, cats, ferrets, and rabbits, because I do think it is part of our job as, you know, a policy perspective to make sure that we don't, that we have a policy that stops any type of abuse of animals. I haven't been able to find much about long-lived birds and large reptiles being bred in like mass quantities, and because I understand having, you know, the other animals in a pet store, it's kind of an inhumane way for them to live if they get stuck there for a long time. I'm not sure that I feel the same about birds and reptiles. done that.
I believe that we did receive some information to say that there was already a group that licenses the breeding of those types of things and controls those. But I don't see, did you see a real problem about including them in this?
I wasn't sure if it was entirely necessary to include them. I did go online and try to find, by the way, when you already he sent me, or sent all of us a lot of information. I did experiment with looking for things like boa constrictors or cockatoos or something like that, and they're not really readily available close by for adoption. There's just not a lot of them out there. I know for a cockatoo, Ann Arbor, there's one there. It was the closest one, and then after that, it's like go to Ohio or farther.
So are you suggesting that we delete those animals?
Yeah, if we deleted those, I'd be prepared to pass this today, and then if it came back that there are issues,
We can always amend.
we can always amend it and add them in if we realize that there's a problem that needs to be tackled.
And Mr. Grosel?
I have no problem with that.
If I could just comment really briefly, I think so why they were also added was the long-lived birds, especially which actually would not affect any of the businesses in Eastpointe, well, it wouldn't affect Petco because none of their birds live longer than 25 years on the average from the industry. Sun conures get really close, but those ones were not considered long-lived birds. They were just included because those birds, if you're adopting a bird that lives 50 years, it could outlive you, 100 years for certain of them. So I think that's why that was included, just it's these really exotic, birds that are just live a very long time, and you shouldn't be doing that on the spur of things anyway. I think that was the intention of adding them. And then large reptiles was just a lot of those, from what I understand, could be, dangerous and may, be like anacondas because it was longer than 6-foot snakes, and, there's the list there. So I think nothing that we've probably ever sold in the city wouldn't affect any businesses, and I think that was the intention of having them there.
So is it your suggestion to leave them there?
Yeah.
I would be, I would have to agree with Councilman Kleinfeld. Maybe if we could add some kind of wording to where pertaining to long-lived birds, maybe, prohibiting long-lived birds that live 25 years or more. Because what does it, we're looking at prohibiting all birds. I guess that's where I need clarification.
So this is just for the sale. Anyone can own these large reptiles or birds. We just wouldn't be able to sell them in a store. You could get them from a shelter, animal control shelter, or animal protection shelter, if we're looking at the definitions here. So you'd be able to obtain one. I don't know, you go to Florida and get a alligator, probably not allowed in Eastpointe. But that you just wouldn't be able to sell it in a store in Eastpointe then.
Yeah, the reason I sort of categorically in my mind separate them is because for the former 4 categories, we're concerned about mills and pet stores being inhumane.
Right.
The concerns with the birds and reptiles is being concerned about the people obtaining them, being able to care for them, and that's, I don't want to preclude, access to the people living in Eastpointe, or, the ability for a store to operate here. If on the front end, everything's on the up and up. When someone buys something, it's their responsibility to take care of it at that point. But I don't know if you guys see kind of how I view that differently, which is why I would prefer to not include birds and reptiles.
And I think that I think it would just be to prevent folks from probably,
Yeah, there's some controls with our ordinances regarding those, so this is a healthy discussion. Those probably, as I think both Mr. DeMonico and Mr. Kleinfeld are saying, there may be limited impact in this area because of a number of other regulations and issues anyway. So whatever fair compromise in that area, as was articulated